And there you go, music, of course, from the Pogues, and that is Sally McLennan. And a few questions about them. In fact, a few questions about one member of the Pogues. Here goes. How does a nice middle-class fella from suburban Manchester end up traipsing around the world in the wake of Shane MacGowan and the Pogues? How does someone get distracted from writing a novel to become involved with, some would argue, the best thing to happen to Irish music since, I don't know, Luke Kelly and Ronnie Drew popped into O'Donoghue's and Marion Rowe, maybe? And furthermore, how does he do it while making the accordion cool? Well, my next guest has attempted to answer those questions and more in his memoir of his time with the Pogues, from their inception to their severing of ties with their wayward lead singer back in 1991. Here Comes Everybody, the story of the Pogues, is written by James Fearnley, and he joins me now from Los Angeles, where he lives. James, you're very welcome to the programme. Good man yourself.
Nice to talk to you. It's nice to be my voice in Dublin in any case.
Indeed. Well, listen, you first met Shane, let's go back, Shane MacGowan that was, when he was Shane O'Hooligan, punk face and leader of the Nips. Had you any idea that you'd still be orbiting each other 30 plus years later?
No, not at all. I remember being very doubtful when I first walked into that room at Halligan's rehearsal studios in Holloway. On that, I think it was a July afternoon in 1980, to see these people in the rehearsal room. I had my doubts, but when something happened in the audition, which was namely to start playing by complete chance, it seemed to me, Rolf Harris's Sunrise, with me just starting it off on the guitar, not knowing that that's what I was starting, and then Shane just picking it up and making it into Rolf Harris's Sunrise. I suppose I kind of had a hunch that I was onto something that was worth pursuing.
And did you feel that the friendship with Shane was something worth pursuing? I know that, like, you bonded over loads of booze.
Yeah, we bonded over loads of booze, as well as trading intimacies about our lives. So it wasn't just the booze. Sort of attracted to people like MacGowan, I dare say. And I wanted to hang around to see what he had to say next and what he was going to do next. I liked the energy, and I enjoyed struggling to understand what he was trying to say.
And did you enjoy carrying out some of the things he might have wanted you to do? For instance, in between bands, he wanted you to wear a gladiator's outfit on stage.
That was so funny. I think Shane was just extending a line that was not being taken by the New Romantics at the time, like Spandau Ballet or whoever else. I just sort of went along the line with him. I stopped short of putting the leather loincloth on and carrying the net and going around with a trident and all that kind of stuff. I dare say Shane might have balked at the last minute at putting on a toga, or maybe not. But it never got as far as actually putting all those costumes on. I just liked his enthusiasm for it.
Okay, one of the things also early on in the book, there's a pretty insightful conversation between you and Shane where he asks, almost kind of plaintively, do you think I drink too much?
Yeah, that was a hard question to be asked. And I think the only thing that you can do in a situation like that is to reflect the question back, which is what I did. Which is, what do you think? Do you think you drink too much? And I think at that time he thought he did. And maybe part of the story of the Pogues after that is how difficult it is to self-reflect after a while, that the pace of everything picks up. So you're going so fast that self-reflection gets put to the wayside until you wake up one morning and it's all gone to hell.
Well, the apocryphal story of how you ended up in the band is every bit as true as the legend said. The August afternoon in 82, Jem Finer knocking on the door, etc. When you joined the band, did you know what you were joining? Was it a band you were joining? Were you just a part-time thing at the start?
I wanted it to be a part-time thing because I wanted to write my book. And I did say to Jem and Shane, who were the only other people in the band that I knew of at the time, despite the fact that Shane was already working with Spider Stacey, the whistle player, in a group called the Millwall Chainsaws, and the New Republicans doing stuff, playing songs and whatnot. And Jem was already working with Shane, busking, and I think Jem was probably badgering Shane to write songs too. As for John Hasler, the original drummer, I don't know how he figured into it, really. So we were sort of separate cells, if you will, when I first joined the group. Does that answer your question? It feels like
it does. Because eventually a band, if you like, coalesces under the banner of Pogue Mahone. Quite a mix of people. There's you from suburban Manchester, son of a pretty wealthy builder. Jem Finer from Stoke, son of a university professor. Then there's Shane from North London or Tipperary, whichever you like. And then Spider and Koch and Andrew from London. Now, just speaking of Koch, there are tales of Koch O'Riordan, who's been on this programme many times throughout the book. She had a thing for Shane at the start, didn't she? And it nearly ended tragically. Well, she came into the band, and I suppose we kind of looked down our noses at Cot at the time, because to me, or she was introduced to me as basically somebody that Shane had just picked up, and we had to teach her the bass from scratch. But that was neither here nor there, because we all taught ourselves how to play the instruments from scratch in any case, so that was no disadvantage to her at all. And you know, as you know, the course of love never runs smooth, and there was a distinct wrinkle in the relationship between Cot and Shane, and she came off the worst. And somebody who might have come off the worst, if you'd taken your father's advice, was your lead singer, because your first telly outing inspired, how shall I put it, a pointed response from your father. Like, whatever you're doing, that lead singer has to go.
Well, yeah, he called Shane a moron, basically. And indeed, Shane's interview with Ben Elton it was a programme called The South of Watford, Shane was uncannily masterful at dealing with somebody like Ben Elton, or with anybody that was asking him questions in the media. That he just managed to come off as somebody who was either as thick as pig shit or knew exactly what he was doing. I prefer to go for the latter of those two. As indeed, I'm surprised my dad didn't.
Was there a problem with the name Pogue Mahone?
Well, yeah, you know what it means, obviously, to all your Irish listeners and Gaelic listeners.
Kiss my bottom.
Kiss my bottom. Bottom is a euphemism for ass, of course.
It is.
And so Kid Jensen just blithely, shortened us to the Pogues. I mean, we got into it, or wanted to get into a bit of a snit about it, thinking that it was censorship. And this is in the climate also of Mike Reid. I understand that he took off Frankie Goes to Hollywood record in the middle of playing it and said, I can't play this.
Yeah.
So there was a climate of all that sort of censorship by the hands of the BBC going on. But it was Jem who's the eternal pragmatist who said, leave it, it's not important. We've got more important things to do, which we did. And Jem had more idea than I did at the time. He said, leave it, let it go.
Okay, it wasn't a Coles to Newcastle thing for you, but by the same token, you do say, you concede, if you like, that by the time you came down to tour these shores here, you had very little experience of, if you like, the Irish, despite playing songs like Kitty, Waxy Stargirl and all the rest. Was that a good thing, do you think? They're coming in from some sort of a place of, if you like, ignorance. It was just good music to you.
It was good music to me, and not just the traditional ones that we were doing at the time, but Shane's songs were undoubtedly just reeked of authenticity to me. There was Sally McLennan. When I first started playing that, I was convinced it existed for 200 years already, because it was so seamlessly.
Good point,
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
So, and also the excitement of learning an instrument that I'd never really clapped eyes on too much. I came across an accordion once that had no straps, and I remember trying to play it like it was a piano with my foot in the backstrap of it and pulling it backwards and forwards towards me. But that's the only time I'd actually ever played an accordion. That was years before. So the excitement of learning something, of meeting these people that I'd never really met before, it was heady days for me.
And you were learning a lot about the Irish, and you would have had stuff from your father saying the Irish weren't necessarily the best types of people. I'll give you a quote here. The Irish navvies on his building sites, I'll quote, feckless, universally stupid, and more often than not drunk. And then you finally realise Wilde, Shaw, Yeats and Beckett, who they were and where they came from. Either, like I just say as well, also. Laugh all you like, James.
My dad's not coming off very well in this.
Sorry.
God rest his soul. He's probably turning in his grave right
God,
now.
Yeah.
My dad was a nice guy, but an opinionated bloke, as indeed so I am. I've inherited that from him.
Right. But you did get a good education with the Irish, even from Shane, like Flann O'Brien and people like that.
Yeah, for sure. No, he took time, and also on tour with Elvis Costello as my first visit to Ireland at that time. This is 1984, and Shane patiently took me through the anglicisation of place names in Ireland, and the Irish, and the trying to replace English as the first language there. I didn't know anything about that at all.
There is a scene in the book where your late mother was fretting over the state of Shane, kind of early on in the Pogues' career. I mean, did you need somebody from outside to tell you that Shane needed help?
Yes and no. I think the reason why that particular thing is in the book and meant so much to me at the time was like somebody tapping me on the shoulder and saying, "Look out for this guy. He's on a hide into nothing eventually." Yeah, that's completely stumped me. I've had questions like this before that, were we acting irresponsibly by not trying to get Shane, well, as my mum wanted to do, give him some, some homemade meals and a bed to sleep in. But as I also say, that rock and roll or entertainment, the touring schedule, the things that have to be done, there's a great inertia about it, where it's hard to break free of that, and you do become the saloon bar piano player that has to play the piano while the pub mirror's going to hell and there's, the liquor bottles are smashing all over the place and there's guns going off.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Like, I remember Phil Chevron came in here once in the programme for about 2 minutes, just a quick mention of a gig they were going to do or something, and it turned into an hour-long fight almost, because, he thought I was 100% correct, but he just didn't want me to tell him. I said, listen, what are you doing, Phil? You're letting Shane die in front of you, kind of thing. And there was an element of that I always thought about the Pogues, that, if you guys aren't going to tell him, then he's not got much chance, because you guys are the guys who are with him all the time and best friends.
Well, I suppose ultimately we did, which is the end.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Book.
I just want to take a look at just one Irish gig, because I used to be the DJ here in Dublin in McGonagall's, which was long before you came here. I mean, you came here later on, and McGonagall's.
We played at McGonagall's.
I know it's a small, tiny club. When you played at McGonagall's, your first visit there, and Spiders, witty aside, scattered through, you were being pulled off the stage.
Jem was being pulled off the stage. Yeah. Why? What do you want me to recount the funnier side, which is that Dublin loves us and it wants to take our banjo player
exactly.
away. Yeah.
So Dublin loves you. Carlo the night before was a bit heavy, was it?
Yeah, that was scary. That was really scary, and made even more scary by the license that Shane basically didn't give to the audience, but I think his worldview at that time was that, people are going to want to fight and people are going to want to kill themselves and people are going to want to do commit all sorts of depravity, and it's not our job to get in their way. And in a sense, that kind of answers your question as what to do about Shane, that we had no license to do anything about him because he was going to commit all sorts of, and so on and so on.
Yeah, right, okay, indeed. Just a quick one about Elvis Costello, because he's another recurring character in the book, obviously. He produced your second album and then he married your bass player. Was it fun with Elvis?
sounds like it happened so quickly. He fell in love with our bass player and produced our second album. Was it fun? Yeah, I mean, I've adored Elvis. It might not come across as like that in the book particularly. There's some of that. I was in awe of the guy, and I was so swollen with pride to play the mandolin with him, and basically our knees are touching. I had a great time working with Elvis, and it was fun to have around us like the orchestra wife on tour with us. He spent a lot of time with us.
Yeah,
cool.
I remember one time here as well too in 2FM. I was in for the hilarious BP Fallon Orchestra, which was like, what are the Pogues doing to Irish music? You're ruining it. How dare you even be allowed to play at all, etc. And there's a few from the kind of more traditional side saying, get out of here, kind of thing. I'm sure you found that all quite funny.
No, I didn't find it. I mean, maybe as a group we found it funny. If we hadn't sort of allowed ourselves to be primed up for a confrontation there. Because I've listened to that tape since by way of research for the book, and it's Noel Hill, bless his heart, that he was like one of the few voices that disapproved of what we were doing. But mostly, the other guys in that gallery there that were supposed to be confronting us were actually did like what we were doing, and it was, they thought, I think, that we were sort of giving Irish music another facet. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
not reviving it or anything like that, but we're just sort of
another branch of the tree. Yeah, indeed.
For sure, yeah, and I think quite a valuable one.
Yeah.
Too.
Other members came in as you progressed: Phil Chevron, Terry Woods, etc.
Yeah.
He was a mate of Frank's, Frank Murray, the manager, and all the rest. Self-Aid, the gig of Self-Aid, the madness of it all, being live on TV with so many famous people playing in that, and then that was that morning. Koch married Elvis Costello.
That's right.
Do you remember?
And it was in May as well, so they would have had their anniversary around now if they'd stayed married, of course, but they're not. It was a hoot. That day was, particularly to hang out with Eamon Campbell. Yeah. Out of and
the
your listeners know who he is. To hang out with him in this insanely hot bar. Upstairs all afternoon.
We're talking to James Fearnley, by the way, Pogues as is. So let's just get to the famous one in terms of a song. I mean, many of the Christmas songs been recorded in the summer, but your band's one is basically universally lauded. Had you any idea that today it'd be what you're most known for?
No, I don't think so. I mean, not specifically, but it was class on a stick right from the start. Really, even though we came at it in two parts. There was Jem wrote basically the melody, and he wrote some lyrics for the faster, in 3-time part, where the argument starts between the loser and his girlfriend in New York City. Although the lyrics weren't about that to begin with, the Jem's lyrics. And then Marcia, Jem's wife, came in and said, you can't, what's the point in writing a Christmas song where everybody gets on? People don't get on at Christmas, generally speaking. There's a lot of hilarity and everything, but it's just another day like any other day for arguments, and probably more stressful for a lot of people. Okay,
well, I want to play a bit of the song now because your most famous 1 minute plus on record, if I can call it that, is the intro to Fairy Tale of New York, and it features a mistake.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Sorry, you hit a wrong note at some point. I must listen to it now with New Year's.
Well, it's so not a wrong note anymore, but when I played it, it was a wrong note. Now it's become the right note because Steve Lillywhite, the producer of the song, and everybody else wouldn't let me go back and do it again. And it's I play a note that's a tone higher,
Oh my God.
It's that one.
Okay, well, I go listen to that. By the way, just before I do, it's a good thing I'm not playing the video. Would you kind of, does the video bring back ever so slight bad memories? Because who's playing the piano in the video? Shane McGowan.
Jesus, have you read the book or something?
Now, hold on a second, James. Not James, I'm not talking about James. I mean, like, did they make you kind of say, sorry, listen, we need Shane to be at the beginning of this video? Who are you anyway?
Well, I just assumed that I'd be playing the piano on the video because I played it in the recording. So I just took my place at the piano, as you would, and then the director came over to me and said, Shane will be playing the piano in the video because it's going to look better. And I said, but I play it backwards and forwards for a little while until I had to take my place in the ranks. But then for the close-ups, I had to put Shane's rings on my fingers, which was like, adding insult to injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was so cross. Yeah. But, I mean, it makes for a good video, and I know what the truth of it is, and it doesn't really matter. No. It's fine. The video's a good one.
All right, well then let's hear a bit of it now. Wrong note and all, here it is. There you are, Fairy Tale of New York, of course it is, from the Pogues. We're talking to James, as in the book that's out at the moment now, which is on release, and a great read it is too. Here Comes Everybody, the story of the Pogues. It's James Fearnley. Just a few little more things, James, I want to ask you here, which is like, the third album, If I Should Fall From Grace with God, huge hit. Follow-up, Peace and Love, was a little bit of a harder slog by the sound of it, definitely. The end of the whole thing, Frank Murray, who had worked so hard, things came to a head with the band and Frank as manager down underway, when you absconded from a meeting with the Irish ambassador.
That's right, yeah. But I think every now and again it's nice to oil a wheel or two by hanging out with people of some status, and I don't think we, as a group, that we could be bothered with the Irish ambassador's status. I think Frank was more concerned that we should. And besides, everything at that point is pretty much going to hell. Spider's wasn't very well. Shane was at his worst, or getting towards being his worst, and we had other things to worry about. And so we just ducked out of meeting the Irish ambassador, and Frank was I suppose understandably upset that we just ducked out of it, which led to a sort of crisis in the hotel room when we got back to the hotel, which you can read about in the book. Yeah,
it's a bit unpleasant, all right, to say the least, what happens.
Yeah, it was hard, stressful, really very stressful.
Yeah. Okay, so Hell's Ditch then, you did make that a more cohesive album than its predecessor, and the last one with Shane, I'm sure you were glad you made, there was, Joe Strummer was involved, he produced that. I actually saw the Pogues once with Joe Strummer in them, which is somewhere in Belgium or somewhere, I don't know where it was, and he was great.
Was he playing the guitar or singing?
He was playing the guitar. Yeah, Joe was, he struck me as being like a really hard worker and really kind of somebody who was very meticulous and methodical about everything he did, and that maybe you guys said, wow, this isn't a bad way to work, actually.
No, for sure. I mean, I learnt a lot off Joe by way of, digging in, and particularly live, and in the studio as well, because there was a novelty song that we recorded in the course of recording Hell's Ditch. And there's like one of those classic advice things to actors, is that if you're playing something funny, you don't laugh at your own jokes. You play it straight. And this novelty song really needed to be played straight. And Joe lost his rag with us. And he was that sort of guy. He just knew how to do stuff. And meticulous, too, with all his notebooks. I wish I could see those now again, the drawings of things in the studio and all sorts. Yeah,
and he always had stuff written on his guitar as well, so you could see what was coming next, etc.
That's amazing. It's a photograph actually in the book of his guitar with all his the chord changes on it.
Yeah, the book opens with the band confronting Shane and then facing up to the inevitable, and then the book ends solemnly, but with a sense of a weight lifting. I mean, not without sadness, but with a weight lifting nonetheless. Do you think there was always something anti-establishment which became diluted over time about the Pogues?
Oh, that's a shocker. Yeah, inevitably. I think back in the beginning that I write in the book about how sort of how timeless the Pogues were at the beginning with our dark suits and the way we looked. We could have come from any time, really. And then once we'd cottoned on to, this is world music and we've helped in some way to bring world music about, and I think once we became aware, whether it's sort of a little bit aware or a lot aware, might be a sort of variety of awareness about it. I think once we started going in that direction, I think we became concerned with our timeliness, and that's when we lost it, I think.
Okay, well then the timeliness, I mean, like what actually kind of, if you like, changed to make you all be able to do it again? I mean, to make you all get back together again. I mean, the funny thing is, James, like your patience and the friendships and the careers within the band were all very much tested by Shane. But you and Spider always had a certain amount of respect for Shane. Is that what kept you there? Is that what keeps you back there now?
Me and Spider?
Yeah.
All of us did.
Right.
We started out as total strangers, and then we were sort of became neighbours by virtue of living in the same area and pretty much the same building, or we knew somebody in the same building. This is Hillview Estate, just south of King's Cross. So we came from strangers to neighbours and then to friends, and then after 30 years, I consider these guys to be my family, and I think it had started to work as family just when the worst was beginning to happen. That's my view.
All right, well, listen, James, it's a great read. Well done. Thank you. Everything a really great music memoir should be, as it says on the cover from the guy from the Decembers. Here comes everybody, the story of the Pogues from James Fearnley.
Yeah. And before you let me go, I would like to say that on June the 8th, I'm actually at the Dublin Writers' Festival, Friday evening there at the Liberty Hall. So if anybody wants to come down and hear a bit of it read out loud, then please join me.
Great, that's just in 3 weeks' time or so. Great. Okay, well, listen, we'll welcome you back here, James, always. And thanks very much indeed for talking to us on the programme and for writing the book, which, as I say, really is a great read. James Fearnley, thanks a million, James.
Thank you. See you later.